If you want to invest into wine, first you need to love wine and you need to have pleasure with it because it's a risky asset.
Yeah.
So if you don't, it's not something secure, it's not a way to securely store some money somewhere. So at least you need to take the pleasure. So if I always say it's the most liquid investment, because at the end of the day, if it's a poor investment, you still have a great wine. You open it and you pour it and you drink it with your friends.
I often wonder whether or not the best days for wine investment are gone, because you see like some of these bottles, especially Burgundy, especially Bordeaux, are so expensive. And then the question arises, how more expensive can it get?
It is a very good question.
Hi everybody, welcome to No Sediment Wine Podcast. And today my guest is Thomas Heymans, wine advisor for private wine collectors, correct?
Correct.
Did
Hello.
I pronounce your name correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
So before we start, could you please tell us more about yourself and your wine journey, and why are you qualified to talk about wine investment?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I originally come from a family of wine merchants, and we deal in wine since 1842 in the north of Belgium. So I grew up in a wine environment where you start getting a few drops of wine in your water when you're 12, when you start drinking wine when you're 15, and you start learning the journey of learning about wine. So that's how I started, and I got very interested into wine, not only Bordeaux, where originally we were investing in, and we had already, the family had some wine estates like Vieux Château Certain, Le Pin, down there. So, but I also decided to harvest in Burgundy and to visit the Loire and to visit the Beaujolais and other regions outside of France. And in 2005, I decided to set up my own boutique to help people that wanted to collect wines. So there's basically two trends, is to make people discover other wines and help people to make private collections.
And can you explain what wine investment is and how it differs from simply collecting wine?
Yeah, it's really the strategy is what do you want to do with the wine that you will be buying. So some people buy wines to enjoy it in a couple of years themselves. Some people ask me to do private collections for their children, saying I want long-term wines, but let me buy wines that I will enjoy with my children or that my children will enjoy after me. But that's really a view to consume the wine, to enjoy it. A wine investment is, of course, a more mercantile approach, is to say, I will buy now wine in order to be able to resell them with a profit in 5-10 years' time.
10 years, that would be the...
Yes, I always say less than 5 years is not really an option.
Okay.
And 10 is probably the best, is basically buy the wines when they're young, and starting to sell them when they enter and their apogee, their drinking window.
Yeah, sure. So what is an investment grade wine?
An investment grade wine is, of course, a wine that can age, so you need to have the aging potential, and a wine that people will be looking for in 5 to 10 years' time at a higher price than the price that you paid for it. So that's the main, if you want to buy wine to make a profit in a couple of years, it's of course the first argument. Now, beyond that, you still need to take pleasure and therefore invest in wines that you believe are great wines. Otherwise, it's just like a private car collector or a private stamp collector, or you invest in something that you believe will bring you some profits in the year, but it's something that you enjoy as well.
But there must be several factors that impact whether or not the wine is really investment grade wine. And I often think that one of the factors would be ageability. You said that it must be able to live at least 5 or 10 years.
Yes. So the first thing is a wine that improves with age. So one of those 20% of the total wine production in the world that can age, that get better after 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Bordeaux is one example. We spoke about it earlier. Most great Bordeaux have to wait minimum 5 years and ideally 10 years. We always say you have to start opening them after 8 to 10 years. So that's one of the reasons, because otherwise if you invest in a wine that has to be drunk within the next 2 years or doesn't improve, there is no real reason to keep it.
That actually answers my next question, because I was thinking, is there maybe some examples or exceptions that there are wines that are not necessarily great for aging, but could still be investment grade wines? Probably not.
Probably not. I will think about it. It's a very good question, but probably not, because the fact is that you need this time for the price to increase. Of course, if you buy a bottle in January, you're not going to resell it with a 20% or 25% increase in price in September, unless it's a very rare wine and you have the possibility to have it at a good price. Then you could do. But that would be more. It would be more like a buy and resell, is that you get a very good price. If you buy them at a normal price, which would be most of the cases, of course you need this period of time for the price of that wine to increase, sure. and also because you will resell them mostly to people that will want to drink them, so you will want to resell them when their aging potential is reached and the wine is ready for drinking.
So how important is the role of limited availability of that wine? Because I often think, and I might be quoting wrong numbers, but this is what I read or heard somewhere, Dom Perignon, which I think is investment grade wine, is released like 5 million bottles every year or almost every year.
Yeah.
So
it's there are two types of wines. They are wines that people are looking for because they are rare. If you take Romanée Conti, for example, there's not that many bottles produced every year. So if you want a Romanée Conti Grand Cru, and if you want a specific year, it's going to be difficult to find. In Bordeaux, the same goes for Le Pin, 2 hectares, a few thousand bottles a year. So it's at a certain stage, it gets rare. But you have other examples like Mouton Rothschild or Lafite Rothschild. They produce hundreds of thousands of bottles every year, and it's still a great investment wine. So it really never gets rare. But the price still increases because people know that the wine is getting better. And there are clients that are looking for Mouton or Lafite that are ready to drink now. They don't want to wait. So they say, I want a 2016 or I want a 2006, and they're ready to pay the price.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to look for the wine that is only produced in 800 cases. Yeah. There are wines, Opus One in Napa is the same thing. They produce quite a lot of wine. But it's still a great wine, investment wine.
Yeah. What I just realized, and I wanted to ask you, how important in nowadays of the technology is the vintage? Because there are some winemakers who will swear that the wine is made into the vineyard, like the great wine is made within a vineyard. And there are some who say that the vintage doesn't matter anymore because we have technology like optical sorters that will make great wine every year.
I do wine myself. And of course, the years where the weather wasn't as great as we hoped, we do our best to do the best wine we can. But at a certain stage, if you didn't have enough sun, if you don't get to maturity, or if there was too much water and there's more water in the grapes than you expected, you can still do a very good wine, but it's still going to be lower than the previous year or the year after, where the meteorological conditions are perfect. And it's the same for Mouton, and it's the same for everyone. It's at a certain stage. Of course, if you drink a Mouton 17 or 13, it's a great wine. It's a fantastic wine. But if you compare it to a 16, then you will feel the difference. Even though it's the same vintage, the same technology, it's the same people, they take the same care or even more care in the years where there's too much rain or not enough sun. But still, at the end of the day, it's still an agricultural product. It's the quality of your grapes when they enter the winemaking facility. It depends on the weather, so you can't make, unless someone one day wants to make a wine in a closed area, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I don't want to live in that time.
Yeah, no, and don't do with wines what you did with tomatoes, please.
yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Are there specific wines or regions that are best to invest?
Yes, of course, there is absolutely. I mean, if you can invest in, you can buy as much Moldavian wine that you want, and there are great Moldavian wines, but I don't believe it will be a huge increase in price over the years. So there are regions, there, of course, as we always say, there are regions that are mature. So if you take Bordeaux, Burgundy, Napa, and some parts of Italy, like the Super Tuscans, of course, that's the wine that most people collect. There are other regions, like in Spain, Ribera del Duero or the Rhone, which are really also slowly becoming regions from which you should invest into certain producer or certain bottles. We can think about Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Condrieu. We can think of Côte-Rôtie, where 20 years ago, I don't think anyone would have ever really invested. I have some clients. We invested in Côte d'Or in 2009, and has proven to be a very good investment. Yes.
Okay.
So it's growing, but the wine collection and wine investment is a very long-term process. Like in every, it's a bit like real estate. You got some parts of the city where that are really fashionable. There are the other parts of the city where you think they will become much more fashionable, but it's also a bet, because sometimes they never do.
That's true.
So you bought a building, you thought in 20 years this is going to be the place to have, and 20 years later they're like, not really. But that's part of the fun as well, is that you should always diversify and say, I will take some of the very established, I will some of the top, some of the established, and also some of the rising stars that hopefully will rise at a certain stage. Yes.
Okay. So you said that would be like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne as well?
Yes, definitely Champagne are the most established. Napa as well, some of the Napa wines. But also in those regions, you got very well-established wines that everybody wants to collect. And you have also rising stars, the younger generation or estates that are becoming a lot more, I mean, which sometimes are there for a long time, but that knows to start to have more attraction into wine collections. We take Spotswood in Napa. She unfortunately, the founder, she unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but in 10 years ago, nobody was speaking of Spotswood. No, we integrate Spotswood in several collections because we believe and we know that the price is increasing and there is demand for that wine when it's 10, 12, 15 years old.
Okay. Oh, and the emerging, what would be the emerging wine regions? You mentioned Rhone.
Yeah, for me, Rhone is definitely, but also a bit not more than Rhone. If you go to Jura, Savoie, it's really increasing. We saw someone like Ganva, also 10 or 15 years ago. Real connoisseurs knew the place, but it wasn't really considering as a collecting. You have some of the Loire as well. That is, they are increasing where you see demand, and then Piedmont in Italy, of course, is really rising. Not only the 5 top stars, but others, and Riviera del Duero, where you had a few wines with 100 points, which really started for collectors or people like me to start looking at and say, is there really that quality there? And there is definitely.
So this brought me to wondering, is there more regions outside Europe as well? Because currently we only see kind of Napa, and I think...
That's a difficult one, yes. There is definitely a Napa. If you take a little bit in Argentina, so a few of the top Mendoza wines are emerging. The fact is that, as you said, it needs to be rare, but it cannot be too rare because nobody knows about it. If you do a fantastic wine, but you do 800 bottles a year and you only sell it to your neighbors, then it doesn't get that attraction. And that's something that you have in certain countries like Argentina or Portugal. They are absolutely brilliant wines that when I taste them, I would really want to put them in a collection, but they don't sell any because they say we have our natural clients, we've made allocation systems, we produce 800 cases a year, and they all go to these people. So you have to go to these people if you want a case, but we're not going to do collections with one case. What we want to have access is a bit more. But
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was also wondering regarding the Rioja, for example, and the question then arises in my mind, does it have to do something with the fact that they lack iconic wines in the region?
Yes.
Because we have in Rivera del Duero, we have Vega Sicilia, and in Tuscany, we have super Tuscans like Sassicaia or Nelaya. But in Rioja, maybe there's lack of these, like, as you said, 100-point, like iconic.
The first thing is, for me, there's two things. There's the super Tuscan or Vega Sicilia or Pingus, is that it's Bordeaux blends. So they've tried to reproduce what was made in Bordeaux. It's very different. At the end, the product is very interesting, but they didn't really work on the local grapes, and that's for me a little less interesting because I always think that local grapes should first be brought to the top potential. But yeah, you need also some leaders. You need some people. They want to produce excellent quality wines and are ready to put a price on it or say, I'm not going to sell it the price the people want to pay. I want to sell it the price I want them to pay for it. And it takes years. I mean, if you think about even Bordeaux, I mean, after the Second World War, half of the Médoc was bankrupt. and nobody was collecting wines, and nobody, in 1947, Chateau Margaux, I think, was blended into some Entre deux Mers, because he didn't know what to do with it, okay?
I want to find that wine.
If I remember correctly, I will need to check, but so it takes a generation or 2 generations to rise, and you need people that want to do that. So yes, it's true. You need iconic people, you need leaders, you need locomotives to pull the rest of the appellation to the top. But the fact is that I think those regions don't have any choice anymore, because globally people drink less wine, but the value they're ready to put in the wine is increasing. So we are selling, in euros, we are selling more and more wines, but in liters, less and less. So you have really to, the only trend is to increase your quality, because otherwise you will be left behind.
Yeah, the premiumization.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we talked about the regions and what is the investment grade wine, but what kind of returns can investors expect from wine, especially if we are comparing to other asset classes?
Yes, of course it really depends how much money you're ready to put in there, and it really depends how much risk you're ready to take. Now, if you remain in the very classical collection, but so far we beat most of the asset classes. Only also because it's more risky than most of the other asset classes. So it's always a risk and return. But normally you can hope well above 5%. You can between 5 and 10% per year. But of course, a bottle of wine doesn't pay a dividend. So you have to invest at day one, and you get the money back with the profit 5-10 years ago. But hopefully after 10 years, you have at minimum double the price of the bottle that you purchased. Yes.
Double, that's nice. But sometimes when I speak with people, I even have had situations when there are people coming in the wine shop, and they say, I have this one old bottle in my cellar or in my living room or in my kitchen, and what would be the price? I want to know. And usually we unfortunately send these people away because this is not really how the like in wine investment and the selling and buying happens. So could you maybe walk us through the process of buying and storing the wine?
Indeed, we have a lot of people coming, and I always say the problem is not the price. The real problem at the end is to find a buyer. So you always have to keep in mind is who will want to buy my bottle, and therefore, and then if you work the other way, you start thinking about first the provenance. Is I need to have an absolutely pristine provenance. I need to prove there is a lot of fake wines. Which bottles are absolutely very difficult to track the fact that they are false bottles. So the first thing is, where did I buy this wine, and keep the records of saying I bought it from a very established wine shop, or I bought it from a wine merchant, or I bought it there. So just to show where you got that bottle from. That's the first point. It's also the possibility to track the price that you put it. And then there is the storage of that bottle. Is that this is not only about the quality of the storage. You might have at home a fantastic cellar, which is perfect in condition, in humidity, etc. But you need to prove it as well, because after 10 years, the people will ask you, okay, that bottle of Petrus I want to buy, but where was it stored? Or in my cellar. My cellar is perfect, but you can't prove it.
Yeah.
And so everyone will say it's been perfectly stored, even if it was in the kitchen below the light, and has been there like a decoration for 10 years, and then for sure the wine is dead. But that person who will want to sell the bottle will tell you it was perfectly stored. So my recommendation will always be is use one of those companies that store for you, and that they can certify that the storage was absolutely in perfect conditions, like Venezia, for example, and the others. But that's very important. So that's the second process. And then the third process, as I said, that the most difficult is to find a buyer. And these companies can help you finding a buyer, finding a restaurant that is looking for aged wine, or looking for someone that is throwing a party and wants wines that is ready to drink to impress his guest. So it's much easier if there is a marketplace, or if the company is helping you to sell it, because also people will see that they're buying from a professional, even though the profit will be for you, because you paid for that bottle 10 years ago and you will get the profit. But it's much easier than going with your Petrus on the road and say, I have a bottle of Petrus, who wants it? It's 5,000.
Yeah.
But of course, we sometimes find fantastic private sellers and we audit them and we check them. But for me, it's a different class. Okay. It's when I buy those private and then I resell them to people that know, and we explain them. This was a private seller. We've checked. We've been there. It was an elderly person. He had a fantastic wine cellar. We tested the wine. It's beautiful, but please know it comes from a private seller.
Okay.
For me, it's important that people know, because when they buy from a professional, they're expecting, if it's not a specific case, they're expecting something absolutely pristine in terms of provenance and in terms of storage.
So would you say that buying from a private seller means you have higher risk?
Yes.
That also means lower price?
Yeah, it is. Normally, you should pay a lower price when you buy it from a private seller. If you buy it, and the problem is if you store it in your private seller, you probably will sell it lower, unless you find someone that trusts you. But if you sell it on the open market, usually private sellers are sold at the lower prices.
Okay. And if I would want to invest in wine, would I have to do like whole cases? Is like whole cases easier to sell, or like single bottles? Can I buy whole case of Mouton Rothschild and then maybe drink few bottles and then sell like 10 bottles away? What is that?
It's no, it's a very good question. I always say that the day you open the case, you lost 25% of its value. Okay. So you need to know that entire case is closed with the band, etc. Have a better value. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for closed cases. That doesn't mean you can't sell a few bottles. And what you're saying is an excellent idea. That's what I mainly say. If you invest into wines that you enjoy, at least drink one or two, because otherwise it's a bit of a pity. And maybe you will drink your profit, but at least you will have drunk this beautiful wine for free, because the rest of the bottle. So yes, you can decide to invest into one Mouton, one Lafite, one Petrus, one Napa, one Opus One, etc. This is absolutely feasible. But if you have the means, I would always recommend to invest into full cases.
Yeah.
But there are cases of 3 on premium wines. Okay. So there's cases of 1. If you go to that level, about 500 euros a bottle, you can have an original wooden case of 1, which is then very nice. And I recently have a client who wanted a vertical collection of Le Pen. And I told him, if you want that, I would strongly recommend to buy original wooden cases of 1 of each. It's going to be much nicer, and I would recommend you never to open them. Even unless you want to drink it, of course. But if you don't want to drink it, if the idea is to resell it later, my recommendation would not to open them, because it's much easier, and people are looking for this original wooden case. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I did not know, because originally it just seems that when you want to invest and you have to start, like, for example, with Bordeaux, then to buy a whole case, which would be 6 or 12 bottles, is a lot of investment. Yes. And then you mentioned, like, you have to diversify, and that's even more.
Yeah, but if you want to do per one, buy a original wooden case of 1 bottle of Margaux, Chateau Margaux, or original wooden case of 1 of Mouton Rothschild, because that's going to be easier to resell. Yes.
Okay. Actually, which I did not mention, and now I'm thinking about it, we keep talking about Bordeaux, but we did not talk about Primeur, which is in the investment market is becoming more and more popular. But lately, I've also seen some articles that say that not necessarily the price is increasing or is increasing as fast as we expect. Yes. So what are your thoughts on Primeur currently in this current stage?
It's again a bit looking into the ball of crystal and trying to guess. I always tell to people, remember 1997 when the wines were released, the prices were lower than on Primeur. So people that bought 1997 on Primeur, most of them lost money between the time they paid and the time they received the bottles. So it's not an automatic thing. You cannot believe I will pay that price and it will increase later. The Chateau, of course, will increase the price between the people that bought on Primeur, and then people will buy when the wine is available. They will, because that's part of the rules. But after, on the secondary market, if there is too much wine as currently, you might see the prices dropping, and that's what we've seen recently. If you take the last year, most of the, or even the iconic wines, we saw the prices slowly going down. And that's what also provoked the Bordeaux to issue their Primeur 2023 with a 20 to 40% discounts compared to last year.
Yeah.
So it's not automatic, but over the time, if you look since some Primeur existed, yes, is that normally you pay even less if you take the en primeur risk, because you need to know it's a risk, because you give the money and the wine doesn't exist already. It's in a barrel somewhere, but the bottles are not there, so you don't know what could happen either to your merchant or to the wine. But I recommend it. I say to people, if you want to really make, not if you want to make a collection of 12 bottles, I wouldn't go there. But if you systematically, we have collectors, they gave us an order of saying you buy a case of each of these wines every year en primeur until I die. And that's part of the game. They want to they want to make sure that to have the wine, they want to make sure they pay the best, what should be the best price, and they want vertical collections. So they want Mouton from 2010 to 2040, but they want every single year in their collection. Yes. So I would recommend it, and over the years, it has been the case that it was always cheaper en primeur than later.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions.
And there are now some chateaus that are exiting en primeur system. Yes. For example, Latour, I think.
Latour, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? They are essentially releasing wine when they say it's ready.
Yeah, that's what Monsieur Pinot said. He said, I want to release my wines when I believe they are ready. So Latour 17 has been released recently, but no younger vintages. And he hasn't released 16 because he believes 16 is not. I think the main, you need to think about the origin of en primeur. The origin of en primeur was first to store wine takes a lot of space. So the chateaus, they need every year to see those bottles leave the estate because they don't have unlimited space to store, except a few of them. But also in terms of treasury, originally the en primeur was not accessible to the end consumer. It was the négociants, the wine merchants, were helping the chateau by advancing them treasury and already have their wines. And now the problem that we see is that some of those, they just are acting as brokers. So by the minute they bought the bottle en primeur at the chateau, they try to resell it or they resell it automatically. And so people with very deep pockets, like Mr. Pinot, he said, why should I don't need brokers. I need people that age, because the idea of en primeur is that the négociant would buy it en primeur, would age it in bottles, and would release it a few years later. If you take our grandparents, you could never buy the latest vintage. It was always older wines that even at the winemaking facility, it was there. So that's why some people are basically saying, if that's the case, if they only act as a broker, I don't need the cash, so I'll just do it myself. And I'll benefit from the increase in quality and in price, yes.
Okay.
But we thought, at a certain stage, it would be a very big trend, but it hasn't been really, it's only a few ones so far. And we've seen other estates that were not available en primeur who decided to enter the en primeur system. So it's back and forth.
Okay. Actually, yeah, before we move on to the next question, you reminded me of something. You said, I decided to buy wines that I thought I could never have access to. And this is something that I maybe start to feel a bit angry about when we talk about wine investment. Then it is because of that wine has become an investment asset. Many people who love wine, simple people like me, I cannot afford these wines anymore. I often think about Salon, which is amazing champagne, and I liked it so much. There's no way I'm buying that bottle anymore.
You don't want to spend €1,000 on the bottle of champagne.
More. I mean, whenever I checked lately, it is like 1,800, like close to 2,000 per bottle. And it's just, and actually in this case, I even blame the producer because they did release the 2008 only in Magnum. So it.
Yeah, okay, it really decreases the.
Yeah, and also increased the price. So, so what are your thoughts on this? Like, how can we apologize to those people who cannot afford these wines anymore?
You know, I agree, but it's a fact, basically, is that there is one thing that people, when I speak about wine investment, I always say to people, keep in mind that all these bottles are somewhere. So of course, some of them are drunk when they're sold. But we know that some bottles like Romanée Conti that we spoke before are basically kept like trophies, like gold. And of course, the production of gold increases and we see the price of gold increasing. So it doesn't mean that it can still increase in price. But one day all these bottles will come from the underground and will pop on the market. And then you could see one day that the price of wine decreases. So wine investment is a risky investment like other investments, but also like real estate or if you buy shares of a company, it could also decrease quite drastically for some reasons that you were not expecting. But yes, it's also my case is that I don't drink Romanée Conti anymore.
Exactly. It seems almost, I don't know, like inappropriate to open that.
Yeah, I have the chance to still drink it sometimes with clients or with collectioners that really want to, and their problem is with whom can I drink that? And when I'm around, they just take the opportunity to open one. But personally, I'm even psychologically, I'm not ready to put so much money in a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Exactly. And but it can be. There are some estates, and people have to think about it. But there are some estates they want to keep their prices down to give it access to real amateurs, and those ones are very difficult to get. But they also sometimes ask you to sign with your blood that you're going to drink what they give you, because they don't want this to happen. And I know that for Aubert de Villaine, it was when he wrote about it, he said, "I'm so sad because I know that less than half of the bottles that I produce are drunk. Yeah. The others are stored somewhere, either in private collections to look at it or trying to see the price increase." And we know we went to the level of 28,000 euros for a bottle of DRC 2008. Yes, it's at that stage. It's a bit of a pity for wine lovers. Yes.
Yeah. Too sad. Okay, but let's move on. So we several times mentioned technology, and I want to talk with you more about the technology, but not the one that we use in the winery or in the vineyards, but increasingly more. How can we use technology in our wine investment to help us? You mentioned Venezia.
Yeah. No, the blockchain is a fantastic tool. As you know, before some estates started to put QR codes on their bottles, and you can go Mouton, for example, check my bottle because they know there's a lot of fake production of Mouton. But even now with these non-fungible tokens, that you can align the ownership. So it's basically representing the ownership of the bottle. It can store all the storage conditions live, and then it keeps it as a memory, and it can also track all the movements or all the transactions that were before. So for me it's a fantastic means for wine investors and for wine collectors, that you have to think about it, that you can be for sure know where the bottle is, that it's a real one, where it came from, and how it was stored. So this non-fungible tokens or using the blockchain is really an opportunity for the wine collection industry. Yes,
and it also helps to protect from the fraudulent wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you buy it from a very reputable company and they buy directly from the chateau, and the non-fungible token is put on the bottle or it's created when the bottle leaves the chateau, it really protects from a provenance perspective.
Okay. And one of my last questions is, I told you about this before. I often wonder whether or not the best days for wine investment are gone, because you see like some of these bottles, especially Burgundy, especially Bordeaux, are so expensive. Mm-hmm. And then the question arises, how more expensive can it get? And like that also decreases the amount of, I don't know, increase of the price in the future.
Keep in mind that the amount of potential customers is increasing at a very high rate, because the upper middle class in the world is increasing a lot. And most of those bottles are stuff that people want. So if you take Mouton, now in Asia, there has been like 250 million people that have no access to that kind of money to buy these kind of things. And after a Vuitton bag and a Prada shoes, that's something that they really want to have in their hands. So first. Second, 20 years ago, when we say that bottles would be more than 500 euros, people thought we were crazy. This would never happen. I can take it for Vieux Château Certain. 2007, I think, at 65 euros, and then people think it will never reach. And now a bottle of 2016 is 450 euros on the retail market. So I don't believe in the fact that it will stop at a certain stage. First, there is inflation. That's the first thing. And second, the fact that there's more and more customers. Nobody's shocked anymore by a 1,000 euro price tag on certain bottles of champagne or on certain bottles of Bordeaux. We sold Cheval Blanc to 2010 above 1,000 euros, and it still sold. I still sold some of them. It didn't stop people. They wanted to have Cheval Blanc 2010. 20 years ago, people saying that the good years were behind them. And the industry has increased and has been very profitable the last 20 years. So I believe in a very bright future for wine collection.
Okay. That means less for me again. Less of the great wines for me. This is what I do. I invest in myself. I usually love. I buy wines that I know will become more expensive in the future, and I might not be able to afford them anymore.
Yes.
So I buy and I keep
But then drink them.
And then I drink them. The idea is not to sell them, just to make sure. Because there are few like Barolos that I bought 10 years ago, and there's no way I could afford them right now.
No, definitely. And my cellar is a lot of that as well. I don't buy the same wines. I buy them to drink them. It's absolutely no investment for profit. But the wines I buy today are not the same wines that I bought 10 or 20 years ago. Even if my financial means increased, those wines that I bought 20 years ago are above the price tag I'm ready. And I always try to find the rising stars. So I find the wines that in 10 years' time, I will tell myself, you did a great investment. This wine it is of absolutely perfect quality. But on top of that, no people know about it. And you have them. And when you bought them, it was affordable to you.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't overspend. So
yes.
And that's what for wine drinkers and wine lovers, what you should do is look for the rising stars of tomorrow. That's what is really exciting.
I agree. Yeah.
This guy will be a star in 10 years. Yeah.
I have one more question left, but I wanted to ask you before. Maybe there's something I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about more specifically when we tackle the topic of wine investment or collecting.
No, as I say, for me, the first criteria if you want to invest into wine is first you need to love wine, and you need to have pleasure with it, because it's a risky asset.
Yeah.
So if you don't, it's not something secure. It's not a way to securely store some money somewhere or save some money somewhere. So at least you need to take the pleasure. So if I always say it's the most liquid investment, because at the end of the day, if it's a poor investment, you still have a great wine. You open it and you pour it and you drink it with your friends, and then you leave the idea behind. But of course, for that, you need to love wine.
Yeah, that's true. So, and my last question is a question that I ask everyone on my podcast is, which is one wine myth that you would like to debunk?
I have personally an obsession is I try to buy the leader of a region and drink it just to feel the difference. And I must say that I have been often deceived, because sometimes you have people that have a fantastic reputation. Everybody tells you should drink their wine. It's absolutely fantastic. Then you take the means, you buy the bottle, you drink it, and then you think, it's a very good wine, but it's not 5 times better than his neighbor or the other guy, or this rising star that is really getting reopening his mind. So for me, one of the myths is it's like in racing. You have the pole position, but he's not necessarily the winner at the end. Okay,
I agree. And off camera, I will ask you for a few questions regarding some of these stars. Well, I wanted to say thank you for coming actually quite far from, I know where you're coming from. And thank you for coming. And we have been trying to arrange this for a while now.
Yes.
And this is a small thank you gift that we give everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will definitely use it to harvest.
Yes, please. I'll be very happy.
Because we need to put a hat because of the sun.
Yeah,
that would be perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great.